Hi guys, today I want to talk to you about artifact collecting. There's a lot of artifacts around the Southwest. People are always finding them and collecting them and taking them home. A lot of people buy and sell artifacts. I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about what's ethical and what's legal when it comes to collecting artifacts in the Southwest. In case you don't know me, my name's Andy Ward. I teach people how to make pottery just like they did centuries ago in the Southwest. And if you subscribe to my channel, I'll teach you too. When I was a kid, collecting artifacts was the thing to do. A lot of us used to go out on the weekend collecting artifacts, arrowheads, beads, pendants, pottery sherds. In fact, I took a summer program at school one year when I was in about 4th grade. And the main thing we did was go out on private ranches and collect artifacts. The teacher would actually pass out bread sacks at the beginning to each of the students. You know, the plastic bags that loaves of bread come in. And we would go out and fill them with like pot sherds. Well, it was fun to find those artifacts, but they meant nothing once I collected them. They ended up in a drawer at home. In fact, I had a whole dresser drawer. My bottom drawer of my dresser when I was a kid was full of pottery sherds and other artifacts that I'd collected. It was fun to collect, but they meant nothing after that. They meant nothing. I didn't even remember where each particular artifact came from, so it wouldn't tell anybody like anything about the site it came from or the age of it. It was just another thing to collect. Most of those ended up in the landfill eventually. Let's talk about the legality of artifact collecting. On public lands, collecting artifacts is always illegal. In Arizona, lots of artifacts are collected off of Forest Service, BLM, or tribal lands, and those are illegal. Those are the kind of things people go to jail for. Now, on private land, as long as you have permission from the landowner, it is legal to collect artifacts from the surface or to dig them up, as long as it's not a grave. But who's to say? So many of the artifacts that are sold come with a certificate that says they came from private land with permission of the landowner. But anybody can say that. Even if they dug it up on public land, of course they're going to say it came from private land. That way it makes it legal to sell it. The point I'm trying to make is that purchasing artifacts is always questionable. Because even if they say they came from private land, that doesn't make it so. What about artifacts that do come from private land? I own 40 acres near the Chiricahua Mountains, on which there's a large ruin. I have all kinds of artifacts out there. But I generally don't collect them. And I do say generally, and I'll explain that more in a minute. Why not? What's wrong with that? Well, there's a lot of questions in Southwestern archaeology. There's a lot of mysteries that need to be resolved. And I know my archaeologist friends don't like me using the word mystery, but they truly are mysteries. They're unanswered questions. They're unresolved problems. Where did these people go? Why did they leave? Who were they? What were their connections with people in the Hohokam region or in the Anasazi region? These are questions that remain unresolved. Archaeologists are currently trying to answer these questions, but it's pretty hard to do when people are picking up all the artifacts off the ground. And what about that thing I mentioned earlier? The joy of discovery. When you find an artifact, it makes you excited. It makes you happy. Once somebody's collected it, nobody will ever have that again. But if I take a photo of an artifact and post it on Facebook, I not only have the joy of discovery, I have the joy of sharing it with my friends. And somebody in the future can have that same joy again and again. It's just like when we go to a national park and they tell us, don't pick up things, don't pick up rocks, don't collect trees and bushes, don't pick flowers. We want to leave it in the same state other people found it, so that in the future, our kids and grandkids can have the same joy of exploring and discovering the Grand Canyon or Yosemite or Yellowstone. It's the same way with these ruins. Ruins in the Southwest are getting fewer and fewer. More of them have shopping malls built on top of them every day. So those that are left should be preserved in the most pristine condition so that my children's children, my grandchildren can hopefully see a ruin and have the same joy of exploration and discovery that I had when I was 12 years old. And also so those archaeologists can answer those important questions someday. But what about artifacts that are already collected? What about artifacts that were dug up years ago? Are they fit for the trash? You can give them to the museum, but most museums won't even take them these days because they don't have any provenience. That is, they don't know where they came from or what they were associated with. The reason I bring this up is I own a lot of artifacts. I have artifacts I collected as a child on ranches around Cochise County, Arizona. I have artifacts that were given to me by the Cambridge family. The Cambridges owned a big ranch, and they used to dig up artifacts way back in like the 50s and 60s on their property. And they had a huge collection. Dorothy Chandler gave me some of the pots from that collection years ago, and I have them. I'm not going to sell them. I'm certainly not going to throw them away. I use them for educational purposes. I use them to look at and study to figure out how the ancient people made pottery. Honestly, the pots in the Cambridge collection were my inspiration. That's how I got into this in the first place, is I was so inspired by their collection of Salado pottery that I wanted to create it myself. So they served a valuable purpose, and they continue to serve a valuable purpose as I use them. The same goes for collections all over the Southwest. Lots of artifacts were collected on private ranches way, way back when it was the thing to do. We have to understand that those came from a specific time and that people had a different mentality at that time about these artifacts. That doesn't make them worthless. Now, some museums will collect these. They will accept these as donations. There are some really great museums around the Southwest where these artifacts are displayed. The local museum in Deming has a lot of these that were donated by ranches. The one in Show Low is the same way. Lots of donations from ranches, artifacts that were dug up decades ago. And these are good places to donate if you have these artifacts. Places like the Arizona State Museum probably won't accept such artifacts, but they do still have value. If you sell them on eBay, you can get some money from them, and they go to a collector who I'm sure appreciates them. The problem with buying artifacts on eBay is you don't know that they came from these kind of collections. Even if the person says they did, you have to know the person in order to know if that's in fact true. So you have to be really careful with purchasing artifacts. But if you have some, or if you know somebody that collected artifacts years ago, they do have value, and I don't encourage you to throw them away. But you have to be careful how you display them or how you show them to others, because people might get the wrong idea. They might think that you're a collector. And that's why I wanted to make this video. I wanted you to understand that even though I may show you some artifacts that I own, I am not a collector. And I am not an excavator. I own a ruin, but I don't go out and dig at that ruin. One last thing, and that has to do with artifacts I collect from my own property. As I mentioned earlier, I own a ruin, and I have collected a few artifacts. Sherds like this. When I find specific sherds that tell a specific story that I'm trying to work on understanding. For example, this is a piece of helipolychrome that's painted on both sides. Very unusual. So I pick some of these up. I've collected maybe 10 or 12 at the most the whole time I've owned the piece of property, so not a lot. But the thing is, I want to preserve it as pristine a condition as possible so that future generations can have that same experience of exploring and discovering as we enjoy today when we go out there and look around. It's kind of a weird subject, archaeological ethics. And different people feel differently, just like they do about religion or about government. Some people feel that it's okay for people to come across the border from another country because they're seeking a better life. They think the ethics override the government's rules. And so ethics is a weird, and I'm not taking a stand either way. All I'm saying is ethics is a weird thing, and some people feel one way and some another. And I respect everybody's right to have an opinion. Go ahead and leave your opinion in the comments. This would be a great place to have a discussion about this. But the point is, this is how I feel. And I'm letting you know where I stand on the ethics of collecting. Because I'm going to show some of my artifacts in my videos, and I want to be able to refer back to this. I want you to know exactly where I stand on the ethics of artifact collecting. So, appreciate you watching. Catch you next time.